Order the January 20th meeting of the Conestoga Valley School Board Directors and welcome all those in attendance and those watching online. Please join me in pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is our second meeting of the month where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on a consent agenda, which includes those items which are routine or have been discussed at our last work session or previously. Are there any changes to tonight's meeting? Oh, yeah, can I have a call to attendance, please?
There are 8 school directors present tonight with Ms. Gibler absent.
Gotcha. Thank you. And any changes to the agenda?
After posting the agenda on Friday, we did add some attachments today. The PSBA report was added, IU13 report, and the delinquent real estate tax report was added today.
All right, thank you. Can I get an approval for tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? All right, ayes have it. So we'll start with board commendations. Congratulations to Leola student Bakshi Chalatsi, who was named the elementary winner for the MLK Youth Writing Contest. And Ms. Trowbridge also mentioned that he was featured on the cover of LMP today as well, which is pretty cool. Bakshi's essay was selected from 76 elementary level essays nationwide. We also want to give a shout out to his teacher, Katie Kendig, for working so hard with Leola's ESL students. Bakshi was recognized at the MLK breakfast event on January 19th, and his winning essay ran in the LNP. Congratulations to CVHS students Gwen Unruh and Mallory Marshall, who were selected by audition for the PMEA Region 5 Chorus. They both placed in the top 10 for their voice parts at the District 7 Chorus Festival earlier this month. Gwen was in first and Mallory took 8th place. And then finally, congratulations to the Conestoga Valley 2026 Distinguished Alumni Class. Alyssa Titus from 1990, Ashley Gilgore Massey from 03, Reverend Elizabeth Fulmer from 08, and Timothy Lapp from 88. They will be inducted in a ceremony on March 6th. All right, superintendent's comments.
All right, good evening. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce one new hire this evening. We have Christopher Wagenseller, who will be a long-term sub in the English department at the high school, if you want to just say hi or stand up. So, Mr. Wagenseller has his bachelor's in English from Virginia Tech University, a master's in English from Temple University, and his teaching certificate from Wilson College. He recently completed a long-term substitute assignment at Cocalico High School and has also served as a long-term substitute in the Ephrata School District. Prior to receiving his secondary teaching certificate, he served as an instructor and an advisor for a variety of institutes of higher education, including Temple University, Central Penn College, Thaddeus Stevens, Pennsylvania College of Health Sciences, Penn State, Harrisburg, and a few others that I didn't list. So extensive experience, and so we're excited to have Christopher here with us for the spring semester, at least for the spring semester. I also want to point out from my superintendent's report, sort of the other end of the personnel spectrum, you'll see the official announcement of the retirement for 3 of our longstanding teachers in the district. Zolma Gonzalez Wilson, high school science teacher, Leanne Davies, ESL teacher at Leola, and Sheila Haynes, learning support teacher at the middle school, have all officially submitted for their retirement at the conclusion of the school year. So we will do a more formal recognition and celebration of their accomplishments towards the end of the school year, but I did want to acknowledge their announcement here this evening. And finally, as I mentioned last week at our meeting, it is School Board Appreciation Month, so you'll see at your places just a little token of our appreciation from the district. The ceramic pottery that is at your place were custom designed by our high school art department, our ceramics class. It was a collaboration among several of our high school art teachers as well as art students. I believe, if I'm correct, I believe the teachers took care of the actual ceramic pottery component of it. the students did the unique designs that are on the pottery and the glazing. So they're all custom made, all individualized. So if you do not like the one that's at your place, you can certainly swap and trade and with one another and, see how that goes. But I thought the students and teachers did a great job creating it. Just something a little different. A lot of times we have our tech ed department create something, but we asked the art department this year. So
Awesome. Our thanks to the art department.
excuse me. I believe it's coming up. I think we have a couple. Yeah, the 29th. I knew it was on the horizon. But that concludes my report.
Okay. Any board comments this evening for district activities?
Yes, I do. So you might see me floating around the middle school on Fridays. I am doing an occupational therapy group with SEEDS. It's an all-inclusive leadership club that we're doing with some autistic support students and some typical students. So should be pretty fun.
Awesome. How long does that last?
The first session is 4 weeks, and then we have like a 2-week break, I think, and then we're going to do another session. So we're doing 2 different projects with that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any correspondence, Madam Secretary?
There is not.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to our Educator Award of Excellence. So this is a board initiative we have that we do twice a year. The teacher who wins the award is actually nominated by other teachers in the district. There's a nomination process they have to go through, and then the board gets to choose who the recipient is. So the recipient for this year is Mr. Sean Carley. Hang out there for a second, Sean, because I'm going to read about you first. That way you don't have to stand up here, and I can stay close to the mic. So I just wanted to read the words that were written about him for the nomination when it was submitted. As a teacher and department chair, Sean unifies teachers at both the high school and middle school levels. He demonstrates cooperative, humble leadership in all of his interactions, asking for input, delegating, and trusting fellow educators. He has led several professional development sessions, he coordinates effective meetings, and he is looked up to for his wisdom and level-headed approach to both teaching and learning. Sean embraces new ideas, technology, and teaching strategies. He has led professional development on how to effectively use new technologies like AI in the classroom, as well as how to use other software like Actively Learn and provide formative feedback and summative assessment. He has helped to create many new core classes and electives in the communications department, giving more opportunities for well-rounded education, including developing and writing curriculum for courses like history of film and media in the 21st century. Sean teaches at all levels, from general to college and the high school courses. He also teaches mixed ability level electives where all students feel welcome in his class. He gives a variety of assignments and differentiates as appropriate to help all students to achieve at a high level. He helps to develop interventions and supports for students who need additional remediation based on data gathered in benchmark and keystone assessments, and he supports teachers of all courses, giving guidance and mentorship to his colleagues. Sean contributes outside of the classroom by serving as department chair and serving on building and district leadership teams. He also facilitates the Valley Heat Step team at the high school, teaching the students on his team not only about dance, but also about believing in themselves and working together. And Sean was not, those are the words of Katie Fake. So if you owe her something, Sean, that's up to you. But anyway, if you would come up, we want to present you with this award. It's not official unless there's proof. There you go. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mr. Carley. One more round of applause for Sean. So we look forward to the next one too, and it is really fun for the board to be able to read these nominations and the words from their peers as they promote each other. It's just something really cool the board gets to do, so I'm glad we get to do that piece of it. Up next, we have MTSS Updates K through 12. And if you guys, yeah, if you could turn the mics on, just to make sure that everybody can hear you.
Notes on my phone.
Yeah, make sure that mic's turned on there. Awesome.
Hello? Yeah. So as you all know, MTSS is part of the comprehensive plan, and I'm here to talk about the academic MTSS updates. We're in year 2, and you may recognize this triangle from years past. MTSS has 3 tiers. Tier 1, in a healthy system, 80% of students' needs are met in a tier 1. 15% of students, if additional supports are needed, in tier 2, and also tier 3. You may have heard RTII before. That's kind of the old version of this. MTSS stands for multiple tiered systems of support. And in MTSS, the difference between that and RTII is it's much more preventative. So there's a lot more focus on a strong tier 1, not just on having kids go to the magic reading room to get fixed. And so when you have a healthy tier 1, then you have a healthy system. You can't really intervene your way into making tier 1 better. And so you'll hear us talk a lot more about preventative measures with the work that we're doing with MTSS. So there are 4 basic components of academic MTSS. It's very data-driven. So data-based decision-making is at the core. And then in order to make decisions that are data-based, we have a series of screenings, progress monitoring, where we're constantly checking on the health of the interventions and the systems that are in place. And it's also multi-level prevention system. Kind of think about it like the medical model of going to your doctor. You go to your doctor for a well checkup every year, or at least we're supposed to, right? And, when you go there, they kind of do a check-in. That's like the screening, like your health screening. And then based on that, you might need some additional tests, or your doctor may say, hey, you know what, I want you to keep track of your heart, and do a little bit more exercise. They may suggest some things, ask you to track your calories if you need to lose a little bit of weight, things like that. And so that's the best way that I can kind of explain MTSS with a way that kind of makes sense when you think about, going to your primary care physician for preventative medicine and screenings and things like that, so that we catch things before they happen. So this year, a really big focus was developing a full K-12 assessment plan with clear screening tools, benchmark tools, progress monitoring tools aligned K-12, and making sure that we had all of those systems in place, and that what was happening at the elementary level aligned with the middle school, and what was happening at the middle school aligned with the high school. And so that was a really big push. Last year we created it, and this year we've been implementing it. We also have a variety of teams. Each building has their own MTSS core team. We also have a district level team, and the buildings have grade level or department teams, where they are then at the teacher level going over the data. So there's a district team, building level teams, and then it goes to the grade level and department. The next piece that we're working on this spring in a pilot at Brownstown and at the middle school is those advanced tiers teams. I think I have a note here that at a previous board meeting, Ms. Kopta asked a question about advanced tiers and how we support students. And that's through those advanced tier systems, which we're piloting at Brownstown and at the middle school. And here you can see kind of what the components are. Tier 1 over the last couple of years with all the curriculum work we've been doing has really come a long way. And you see circled that what's in development, the Tier 2 and Tier 3. And you can kind of see like how that's all broken down. Dr. Mann, did you want to make a comment on the digital system?
What we've been doing over the past 6 months is reviewing our data systems that we have in place. We have a program called EdInsight, and Power School has a tool called Analytics and Insight. So we had a number of committee members that went through a process of reviewing those two programs. And we're now at a point where we're going to make a decision and actually make a recommendation to go forward with the Power School Analytics and Insight. What this will help do is, a lot of the data and a lot of the information you have there, it helps the teachers and the administrators curate the data, pull the data together, report the data in a variety of ways. It allows you to do a lot more with the data, and we'll talk a little bit about that next week at the retreat. Seriously, those components. So we've a number of people in the committee, probably about 20 people. We've had about 20 meetings, a lot of work, but I think it went really well.
And that Power School platform has an MTSS component to it so that each child will have MTSS records. So if a child received an intervention plan and then interventions, say in 3rd grade, that will be able to follow that child as part of their school records so that we'll be able to, look up like a 6th grade teacher at the middle school will be able to go, oh, okay, well, let me look and see in 5th grade what supports and systems were there. So very, very much like that medical model with that information following students individually. And we'll be able to see not only their individual data, but also then administrators will be able to have a dashboard that comes up so they can see these are the different groups that are receiving interventions. This is the progress of those groups. And so we'll be able to look at what we call data dashboards to look at the health of the building systems as well as the individual students and groups. So that's going to be a big push for us this semester, kind of developing all of those pieces. For MTSS Professional Learning on February 13th, the whole district is involved in K-12 MTSS PD. At that point, all of the teachers, professional staff will have had what we're calling MTSS Basics training, kind of getting everyone level set so they understand like what we're working on. And then in June, the week that we're out after school, all of the pilot groups are going to come together, and we're envisioning an MTSS Academic Behavioral Summit, one day focused on kind of sharing all the information from the digital data platform pilots, all the work that's happened with the advanced tiers pilots with those building level teams, and then also the behavioral pieces. So this is the first time that we're really starting to pull together is what's called integrated MTSS, which is where the systems, academics, and behavior really work together. And we kind of look at the whole child, and that's our ultimate goal. So that's the MTSS academic update. So the goal, a healthy system, has 80% of students are successful just receiving Tier 1 supports.
But what was the percentage for Tier 2 and 3?
15% for Tier 2, and then 3 to 5% for Tier 3.
Thank you.
I have a question. What happens to the data if a student leaves the district? Does the next school get the data, or just what happens to it?
So we do receive record requests from other schools, and when schools, when we send information, if you're talking about like specific MTSS information, we share that with other schools when they have record requests.
Are a lot of schools following this program right now?
So MTSS exists in a variety of levels at different schools. I would say that it is a part of an initiative across the country.
Okay.
And so I would say more than used to,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
I have another question. If our testing is accurate, that would suggest to me that in PSSAs, 80% of our kids should hit, if not advanced, or what's the one just below?
Proficient.
Proficient. And only 3 to 5% would ever be at the very bottom. But that's not the way it is.
Correct.
Why?
So a healthy system, the goal of a system is that 80% of students are proficient, and then usually you have staffing and time and resources to be able to address 15% in a tier 2, and then 3 to 5% in a tier 3. So in the old RTI model, we thought, and we were both here at the time when we were like, okay, we're going to, send these kids to tier 2. We're going to send them to tier 3. We're going to give them additional reading support. But what we've learned through the MTSS process is that we need to strengthen our tier 1 so that we don't have as many kids in tier 2, which is why we're putting so much energy and so much work into our curriculum, into our best practices. Tier 1 should be differentiated and strong so that we have less kids in tier 2 and tier 3. And you're right now we don't have a triangle. We have more of a rectangle, and our goal is a triangle.
But we don't have 80% getting proficient, do we?
Not yet. That's our goal. So we have too many
Are they
kids.
being moved out of tier 2 too quickly?
No, I think that, it's the trap of MTSS, really when you think about it in an RTII kind of fashion, is you want to add more. Like if you're unhealthy and you are, say you need to lose weight. I'll use that example. And the doctor says, okay, you need to go to an intervention is we need to go to the gym more. We're going to go 30 minutes. We're going to go 45 minutes. That's one thing that you can do. But if you're not addressing how you're eating every day, and you're not addressing how you're sleeping, and you're not addressing your stress levels, those things that are part of your core, that's your tier 1. No, 30 minutes at the gym isn't going to fix somebody who's eating potato chips all the time. So if that kind of metaphor makes sense, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of focus on tier 1 so that we have less students ending up in tier 2 and tier 3. That's the goal. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Question for mentioning the Power School Analytics and Insight. Is that a system that'll have to be rolled out? Because how does that change what teachers are doing now? Is it just simplify it, or is it like an additional carry for them?
So no, it's actually our hope and our goal is to make it easier. We already have Power School,
Right.
Which is our student information system. And so when the data is also in the same system, it won't need to go anywhere else.
Right.
Like the teachers will be able to access it directly from there.
Gotcha.
And so when I pull up and I create a student intervention plan, I'll click a button and I can pick any assessments to come right over into that student plan. The grades come right over, the attendance comes right over, the discipline comes right over, and it's all there in the same system, so they don't have to go to a completely different system.
Because I know that's sometimes we hear of so many different things that have to be, we hear lots of initiatives, and you want initiatives, and you want all these good things. But then you also remember the reality for so many teachers and the difficulty they have. I think of behavioral and emotional support teachers and stuff, and how hard that job is on top of everything else. But then they do all of the regular reporting and everything. So it's hear about all this stuff and you go, I just hope we're always trying to simplify things for them. And a new power school, we've invested in that, and that seems to have been a pretty good fix. And anytime there's a new portal, kind of like that opens up of like, all right, this is another way to tie in something we're using. I always try to think back to the teacher, like, how much more work are we adding, or are we hopefully simplifying things for them so there's less so many different ways to have to report the same data. So if that's what we're doing, then I'm on board for that.
That's 100% the goal. Our goal is to make the MTSS system reliant on the system and not on people, and that the system bears the weight of the protocols and the dashboards, and it makes everyone's job a little bit easier. And that also, we're trying to create something that's simple and elegant.
Yeah.
If I could piggyback on what Michelle just shared, because I think that's a concern that we all had, Mark, about anytime you implement something new, as well-intentioned as it is, is it one more thing on people's plate? I had the opportunity to sit in. I wasn't directly involved in the whole vetting process of what data management tool we wanted to have, but it was at the very end, I was able to kind of sit in and contribute, and Michelle and Dr. Mann and other members of our team really did they had a very intentional plan in place of how to vet these tools, and they were looking at those things like just how many clicks even it takes to get access data on one tool versus the other, and the ease of teaching. And we thought bringing it all under the power school. Ultimately, there was a whole committee made up of primarily teachers from throughout the district that they looked at these tools. They got to kind of roll their sleeves up and play with them. So I just wanted to give kudos to our leadership team for organizing. There wasn't, I won't call it a pilot, but more of a vetting process for analyzing these tools. And those things that you brought up as concerns were definitely what were part of their look-fors through the process. It was pretty impressive just being able to sit back and watch that team dialogue and discuss the pros and cons of all the different tools that we looked into. And we ultimately landed on Power School. And part of it was because we're already using the CISVERT component of Power School, and we've talked about the more you can bring things under one umbrella, sometimes the better, but sometimes not. So we wanted to do our due diligence.
Yeah. Well, and I look forward, because like I know we mentioned, like you said at the retreat, Don, pursuing that kind of how data is used from an overview perspective for us to really understand when you guys report that. And I know all the public's in the same respect, all the parents out there are like, data, what does it mean? And then you see some blue or red or green or yellow dots and you go, what does that tell us? So for us to break into that a little bit more into the thought process, I'm looking forward to that. So I appreciate that very much. Any other questions or comments for this presentation? Okay, thank you very much.
We still have part two of the presentation.
Oh,
Part
right,
two.
part two.
Part two, PBIS.
That's why you didn't get up when I dismissed you. Well done.
Yes, I'm not just up here to sit.
That's right.
Moral support.
Moral support. PBIS. Well, I guess I wanted to start with is everything that you just learned from Michelle is what PBIS is. Her side goes by a different name, the MTSS portion. PBIS is MTSS. MTSS is PBIS. It's behavior focused. And so when that initiative started many, many years ago, it was given a name that looked different than RTI at that time and now MTSS, but it's the same thing. So when we talk about the triangle, I'm going to show you a triangle at the end. When we talk about the systems of support and how you want to have tiered levels of support, tier 1 for everyone, and tier 2 and tier 3 get more and more supportive as you go up the triangle, the same thing. So all of that stuff that Michelle just said, consider that the same thing. I'm just not going to tell you about it. She told you about it. What I'm going to show you is some data. And so why I have some data to show is we are in tier 2 of our implementation. Year 4 of working through PBIS in the district, but year 2 of implementation. So we have data to talk about. We don't have all the data that we would like to have, and as Dr. Mann just introduced, we hope that that system is going to be able to make it even more seamless for us to be able to get historical year-by-year data, month-by-month data, that will really be able to dive into it and to really get to the next levels of really knowing how to support through those intervention pieces in tier 2 and tier 3. So I put up some acronyms because there's a whole lot of letters that go into these kinds of things. So if you ever, keep that handy as Idette rolls her eyes at me. There is a lot.
My last set was 6 pages long of alphabet soup.
It is. It is. The ones you really have to pay attention to is PBIS, which is positive interventions and supports. That's basically what we're looking at. The other one that I'm going to talk about is the DSFI, and that is a survey that we do for the district to see how our system in the district, our administrative system, is working. The other thing I'll talk about is SEB, social emotional behavior, because all of the work that we do in our social emotional learning pieces across the district integrates completely into PBIS. Because what PBIS is essentially trying to do is it's trying to encourage positive behavior and making sure that the behavior errors or misbehavior is intervened correctly and early. And so it's a dual piece. We're looking at positive behavior, but we're also intervening on problem behavior. The other thing that we'll talk about is ODRs, and that's the office discipline reports or referrals, and that's when a student is sent to the office for something that can't be handled in the classroom. And then I'll also talk about OSS, which is out of school suspension. So what I have for you, sorry, I forgot to take a drink. Can you go back what I have for them? As I have fidelity data, which is telling us how well we're doing implementing the program, some outcome data, which is the end result, to say why is it important for us to keep doing this, and very just quick anecdotal data at the very end. So when we look at all of our schools, every single one of our schools met our 2 main goals for this year. And that is that our leadership teams are meeting, we're looking at the implementation, we're resolving any of the obstacles, and that they're doing that consistently, and every single building across the district did it the way that they were supposed to do. And when we're talking about support systems and making it easier for things to occur, having a strong team in all the buildings, having a strong district team over the district makes the system work better. So that goal was accomplished across the district. And goal 2 was that we're using our PBIS rewards platform, which is that data platform, and some of you as parents may know what that looks like. We're using that consistently across all of our buildings to acknowledge and reinforce that positive behavior. And so we met that teacher usage of over 90% across every single building. So this is some data that we have by month in all of the buildings, and our goal was that we had over 90%. And so you can see that all of the buildings met that goal. You had sometimes dips, and those occur for a variety of different reasons. The important thing that we have in our buildings, though, is we have building teams. So when they have data to look back on and try to figure out, like, what happened this month? Why does this look? Then they have those team meetings, and they're able to figure out a fix. The next one is, are all of our students having access to the acknowledgement systems? We want to see those numbers all the way at the top. We want to see that bar consistently straight across, because that's telling us that every single student in our district is able to access the system. It's not saying that some groups have less access than others. And that's across every single building, across every single month. That's, again, good data that we want to see. The DSFI, as I mentioned earlier, is how the system is working in the district. So how are we administrating the system? So we're looking at leadership teaming, stakeholder engagement, funding and alignment, how our policies are aligned, our workforce capacity. That goes to your question, Mark. Training items, our coaching, our evaluation, and then our local implementation. And I'd like you to see the difference between when we first started this back in 3 years ago, and that would be the red line. And you can see when we were evaluating ourselves, how low we were. In some of the areas, we didn't even hit the mark. Like a workforce capacity, we were at 0.0 in terms of hitting the goals in those areas. And when you look at where we are on the orange now, which is the 24-25 year, you can see that we have made progress. Our expectation is that we get to the 2.0 data point, and it's just a method of evaluating ourselves. If we get to the 2.0, we can say we've hit fidelity for ourselves as a district system. So you can see that progress over the last 3 years. This is the triangle, okay? This is our triangle for behavior in the district. So as Michelle explained earlier, you want to see 80% in the tier 1 green, you want to see 15% in the yellow middle tier, and you want to see 3 to 5% in the red. You can see we're really close. And so that also is telling us that we're on the right track. We're getting there. We're getting very, very close. So that's good data for us to know that the system is working. We have all of our kids in the right tiers. What our goal ultimately is to get our interventions at the yellow and the red completely strong, completely consistent, and have some just really, really awesome interventions for kids that are struggling. So ODRs, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this, is the office-managed incidents. So they're the behaviors that can't be managed in the classroom that have to go down to the principal and have a little bit more support. So we took our data over every single month of last year, and we compared it to the national average. So PBIS is a national framework, and there's a lot of data that goes in. So you're able to take your data and compare it to the national average. Bless you.
Thank you.
And what we were able to see is that 60% of our time were neither better nor worse than the national average. So that's average. We're doing average in terms of how many times children are essentially sent to the office. We would like that to be better. But for you guys to know the first time that we have this as a marker that we're average, that's a good benchmark for us. Does that make sense the way I explained that? Okay. And the
Is that
next.
the first time we've compared that to the national average?
Yes.
Is that why? Okay,
Yes.
so this sets kind of that.
That's a bench, yep.
So the next time you present, we can go, where's our benchmark for
Yes,
the national
yes,
average? It gives us something
yes.
to bid off of.
Now look at this benchmark for the next one, which is, God bless you, is the out-of-school suspension. So this is how often we are using out-of-school suspension as a behavior intervention. And over the entire course of the school year, we were 100% of the time significantly better than the national average. So that's a high benchmark. That's a benchmark you can't improve on.
Yeah.
But it does give us an indication that as a district, we do a very good job at doing alternative ways of essentially behavior correction. When someone makes a mistake, we try to figure out different ways than just removing them from the classroom, removing them from the building. Because what happens when kids are removed from the classroom and the building, they lose instructional time. And then Michelle's unhappy. So what we try to do is have alternatives to that while also expecting that behavior is high, that we have high behavior expectations, that nothing changes in that way, but we're finding other disciplinary ways in order to change behavior, other than just saying, go home. So this is some outcome data that I wanted to show to you. Positive behavior, PBIS, isn't just about correcting behavior. It also is about, and doing the positive reinforcement, it is also about changing school climate and having more conversations among staff and students and feeling safe and feeling accepted and feeling that it's a place that they want to come to. So we know that we've already seen a major change in safe to say something. So we had last year over, is that 190? I may need glasses.
And 19.
190 and 68 for last school year. That is a very significant change. And what that usually indicates is that there's a climate change, because kids don't go on a computer and just say, hey, I have a problem, somebody help me. Often they're getting that need met in a different way. Maybe they talk to somebody. Maybe the problem didn't happen to begin with, but something significantly changed in that climate over those 2 years to be able to feel like they didn't have to go on a computer to put a referral in. And that is one of the expectations that you see in PBIS, that the school climate becomes more open to having those conversations.
Is that number you gave true across the board for safe to say statewide, or is that just us?
That is just us. I didn't look at our safe to say across the state or what schools had PBIS or how well they were implementing PBIS. Our fidelity for our PBIS is very high. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it in a high-fidelity system, which is good.
Do you know specifically about schools that are using PBIS, what this number looks like?
In other districts, I don't.
How are we doing this year, now that we're halfway through?
We're still in the downward trend.
Good.
So we'll see at the end of the school year what that actually looks like. I know we also had attendance improvements last year too, which I didn't include on here, but attendance also improved in some areas. And that, again, is an indication of school climate improvement. So what are we going to be doing next in PBIS? Like I said, we're in our second year of implementation. We have transitioned from our outside consultant of spec to now working with IU13, the TAC program. So this is our first month for the transition. Everything's going well. Excited for that move. We're going to be working on our advanced tiers development. So that's that yellow and the red part of the triangle. So really getting into these individual student plans, working through the data system, getting even more data that we could use to be able to make individual decisions for kids, to work together with Michelle and get our MTSS dashboard development finished and finalized, and then finally do our fidelity walks, which are our learning walks for Tier 1, which is just to help the team know what we need to do better in terms of coaching or what PBIS could look like in the classroom. And then lastly, I just want to share a very quick family anecdote. In one of our elementary schools, a parent contacted a teacher to let them know that what's happening in the classroom isn't going unnoticed at home. And when you get messages like that, that's pretty awesome, because what happened was ultimately there was a conflict between some of the kids at home, and mom was going to go in and try to help it forward and, do some parenting. And before she was able to do that, she overheard one of her children starting to do her own resolution and her own mediation and her own pro-social skills, and talk through, problem solving and just social learning. And the mom, asked her, where did you learn these things? She said, I learned them in the classroom. I learned them with so-and-so, with my teacher. And so that made a big impression on that parent, to where she felt she needed to tell the teacher about that. So when you hear that things are that are transferring from the classroom to home, that's a win. It's a good thing in a positive way.
I have a question.
Turn your mic on, Kathy.
Back. Thank you. Sorry. On one of the things that was about the students having access. What does that mean?
It ultimately means that the students are getting reinforced.
Okay.
That students have access to getting positive reinforcement, and then can change their points into some sort of reward.
Okay. That doesn't mean that they have access to the data.
No, correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
No, not in that way.
Thank you.
They do know their points, though. And a lot of them enjoy that, and they like to keep track of it, and it's motivating. And in all the good ways, that's the data that they know about.
I'll go back to just the teacher perspective too, because I always think about the teacher perspective too when it comes to the PBIs, especially because we're trying to get, when this first all started, I remember it was like, we're trying to get consistent, right? And Michelle, like when you were part of Fritz and you guys had a different system than some of the other elementary schools, and like trying to get everybody on the same page, what's working and how that's going. So from that perspective, are you also hearing from, because I imagine a lot of this was kind of confusing for teachers too, right? You're trying to implement things district-wide. Each building is doing something different they did before, or maybe changing something a little bit from what they did before, from elementary and then into middle school. And there was a lot of like changes at the middle school from the new building and all these things, right? It's last couple years, but we're going back to 23, right? Was when this all kind of got, or 22. 22 was when it started. So from 22 till now, would you say that on the whole, teachers are experiencing positive results from this as well? Because you look at like And I guess I references back to like the teachers are utilizing it, right? They're doing 90%. So they're giving out rewards, they're utilizing the system and stuff like that. But are they also like feeling positive about a shift, especially as they inherit grades, right? Coming out of, I think of like 6th and 7th grade teachers, they're inheriting elementary schools, kids that maybe now they have access to this reward thing and they're coming in, they're still utilizing that same thing. Is that consistency starting to have an effect from teacher to teacher? I guess that's the way I should have phrased it from the beginning. Is the consistency like having an impact at the teacher level?
In terms of how it's working for them?
Yeah, like they're seeing the positive benefits of all this, right? Because it was very new.
Anecdotally,
Yeah.
I would say that the feedback that I get has been substantially much more positive this year than it was when it was being implemented.
Yeah.
And that's expected, and you only hope that as you keep going and you keep working through the tough parts and you keep the ship going the right way, that it will get to the point in which you start to see the positive outcomes.
Yeah.
I would also say that we see a much more positive reaction up through 8th grade. High school is a different kind of, it's a different environment for PBIS. So what our essential goal is, we want to make sure that it's working the right way in the high school. But what we continue to see is the data we're getting back from the high school is all positive. It may be more challenging to implement in different ways than it is in the middle school and the high school, but the data is showing positives.
Yeah.
So it's that balance between figuring out how to make it more user-friendly at the high school, but make sure that we don't stop using it because it is showing positive outcomes for those kids, for the kids at the high school.
Yeah. And I guess unless you start offering new iPhones and new cars as rewards for the high school kids, they're a little less interested in cute little things and, popcorn or something with the teacher. So
Although they like snow cones?
yeah.
Popcorn.
Oh, slushies.
Slushies.
Yeah. Love the slushies.
It's sort of like the same thing as an MTSS. So if you start here, like in elementary school, and you're implementing this, and hopefully in high school, if the kid is like, consistently in our district, then
It was
it's the exact same.
exact same thing. You start to see that consistency over time, and you start, they're able to take those skills that they're learning early and apply them all the way through.
I think one of the things also that really helps with that is that we have a PBIS and an academics. We have a district level team, each of them, and I go to Sarah's and Sarah comes to mine so that there's a lot of crossover. And those teams it's almost like a representative democracy with like stakeholders from principals and specialists and teachers and special ed consultants there on each of those teams. We meet monthly, and then there's a structure where then there's building level teams, and then there's grade level teams, and we've established feedback loops so that all of those teams then talk to each other, and then we come back and we've kind of worked through how there's a district level system and that we all work for the same district, and it's a K-12 system, also with flexibility to understand that at the middle school and the high school level, it may need to look a little different. And so I think the real strength of our implementation, lies in that, and Sarah led that effort with PBIS when we started that. And so I think that's a huge piece of why it's creating that very much district feel for something, which then is not new for teachers. And we have a common language, and the kids have common, practices across the buildings.
Yeah. All right, cool.
In the buildings where implementation was a little lower, does that reflect new teachers that haven't been trained well in it yet, as opposed to veteran teachers who aren't utilizing it?
I don't think it has to do with that, although I'd have to dig back into the building level data to. Often it has to do with just what the schedule of the building looks like from month to month and how often you're using it. That was the initial feedback that Spec had provided me in terms of the implementation, and that it's going to be important that when we see those dips down in a building data about how the implementation maybe has dipped below that 90%, to really delve into what was happening in that classroom or what was happening across the building that month and try to figure that out. And that's the beauty of actually looking at things by month to really, work together as a team and not just take it as face value, because it may be okay that it's down below 90%. That's perfectly fine. You just have to figure out why.
Any other questions? Okay, you're officially dismissed. Thank you, guys. Okay, we've reached the first part in the meeting for public comments. Any public comments specific to tonight's agenda? Okay. Any comments from CVEA tonight? Oh, yeah. Yeah, could you come up to the mic? Sorry, I didn't see your hand back there. Okay, is this an agenda-related item? Would you mind just waiting until we get past the consent part? Sorry about that. We just try to keep it, the flow working for us here. All right, no comments from CEA. Any comments from any other employee groups tonight? Okay. So we have the consent agenda. Before we approve this, were there any questions about anything on the consent agenda that needs to be addressed?
I have a problem with item H.
Item H?
Yes. I don't know if you want to deal with it and pull it off or take care of it now.
Sure, do you feel comfortable relaying that? What you're,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
fine with
yeah,
that.
go for it.
Yeah. I have mentioned this many times about these requests for field trips and so forth. And some of them are very complete, some of them are sketchier, and others like this are not
Vague.
clear at all. I understand that they don't know how many would be going, but they certainly know which of those dates they want it for. They certainly know who's going to chaperone. They could give us better information. And until they do, I'm going to request this be removed so I can vote against it.
Dan, I know you had responded to some, is there anything you want to?
Yeah, just specifically for those who haven't read the agenda in detail in the audience, this is in regards to approval in anticipation that some of our student athletes might qualify for state competition. School board policy says any overnight field trip needs prior school board approval. I think this is an example of where sometimes policy doesn't flush well with the reality of how things come up sometimes. So we were hoping to get, based on performance, we have reason to believe that some of our athletes in individualized sports like where there's individual competition, not just team competition, such as swimming and wrestling, those students might, we have some students who it's looking like there's a good chance they're going to make the state playoffs, which would require travel to either state college or depending on where they are. So what happens is, unfortunately, if we're following school board policy, sometimes if we get that, if we wait until we know 100% for sure who's qualifying, what their seeding is, where they're going to be competing at, et cetera, there may not be a school board meeting prior to when that event is, and then if we're following board policy, we say, sorry, you can't go and compete. So we were hoping to have pre-approval from the board that if in the instance where some of our student athletes qualify for state competition, they're approved, knowing that administratively we would require a detailed itinerary of the travel, where they're staying, what their accommodations are, who the chaperones are, et cetera. So it's just one of those things where it's a little messy. I've shared before, I think maybe in the future, one thing we should probably look at is, it also, we're applying our school field trip policy to this. And is this a field trip or is this just some other type of overnight travel? And do we maybe need two separate policies that address both in the future? I don't know the correct answer to that. So certainly understand the concern. And I think the intent was to seek pre-approval from the board in the likelihood or maybe in the hopefulness that we have some student athletes qualify for the state competition, knowing that we don't know the details yet. We don't know what, and depending on the sport sometimes and what, in the first rounds, even where the location would be. So how do you have hotel accommodations and so on? So are there other avenues we could maybe pursue outside of changing the policy? I don't know the answer to that. Could we, if it's not approved, do we, our concern is just if there isn't another board meeting in time to approve students. We don't want students who qualify not going to state competition.
I understand the timing problem, and I understand we never know which or how many students it will be. Nevertheless, there is some information that they should be able to provide us with. When there's 2 or 3 days in between, are they coming back or staying? Little things like that. Where would they stay? Certainly they have some idea of where they're going, who would be the chaperones. There is some information they could give us. This used to be also a way for us to be assured that everything was signed, that everyone knew what the rules were when you went away from the school for any reason. The behavior rules and if there's any fees involved. There is some information they could give us, and they gave us nothing.
I'm looking at it and it gives you dates, but a lot of times, like if there's a tournament, you don't find out when and where until like 3 or 4 days before the tournament. So like it's the Tuesday before your tournament on Friday that you find out where you're going to be and what time and at what building.
Well, we need some sort of explanation because obviously just giving us the whole schedule doesn't explain to us what's happening and doesn't explain to us whether or not all the proper procedures are going to be in place for these kids. And that's my concern.
Dr. Hartman, do you see any problem if we were to pre-approve this before we exactly know the tournament date? I mean, do you see any issues?
It's a tough, difficult question to answer. I believe I think if our expectation administratively was that the athletic department understood that level of detail was, once they get their concrete details, that's going to be provided to us.
Okay.
And that even if with board approval administratively, if we're not comfortable with what the level of detail they provide us,
Okay.
It might not be approved. But, I think it goes back to, do we make, I think we're hampered by policy language right now. And so and there's nothing we can do about that at the moment. So are we looking, is there, do we have to look at revising that policy in the future to maybe have a carve out for athletic competition?
To be honest, I'm generally not too concerned. The thing that concerns me most is not approving something and then the kids who do make it get penalized because they can't go to it because we're worried about if we're staying at the Holiday Inn or the Hampton Inn on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So as far as I'm concerned, what do you need here? To approve the consent agenda removing H and then we can vote on H after that? Is that what you would need since that would like it pulled? And then we do a separate vote?
We could move it to action discussion, I suppose, or
do it the way I was going to do it and then.
Somebody make a motion to approve
I
items.
approve that we accept the consent agenda removing letter H.
I have no problem with proving it on an if basis. Just so they know we're going to let them go. I would just like better information, even at this level. And the only way I know to get that point across to some people is to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can't help but make the analysis back to like my own sales team in terms of even if you don't have enough information, I still need the same form. So I think in lieu of having a separate policy, probably what would behoove them is to say, hey, I do have some pre-filled out forms that have some basic information. I'm limited on what I can put there for this, but here's what they're for and what they're referencing, as opposed to just the schedules. And that would point to Idette's point of like, you didn't even provide the start of a form that's required for the trip. And I get that piece of it for sure. At the same time, but I completely understand the point too. We can't penalize kids because they can't go.
Right.
So.
And I trust the administration to, if there was an issue, like he said, would not continue with
Yeah,
the
admin
next year.
regulation lines up with the
Correct.
policy, so we know that they would hold them to it as well. But I do understand Idette's
Yeah,
point as well. It's like,
they're coming up very quickly, and I understand that, and so surely they have done some planning,
sure.
and they could have shared that with us.
Yeah, and maybe we could add, to what Dan was talking about, maybe we could look at a provision for this type, this level of, I don't know if we necessarily need to pull it off. It's something we can talk about, whether or not we need to pull off for a specific athletic policy separate from the field trip, or we just have a provision for very fast-moving or up-in-the-air tournaments, like you're saying, Diana, where you don't find out until a couple days before. How do we have something where they can present us the idea of what they're doing, but then they need to report back with everything they did?
I don't know if we need another policy so much as we need to extend.
Right, like
expand this
another
policy.
point, yeah.
And
adding a
that,
point
and that's
for-
fine, but that doesn't fix right now.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Right, so, okay, so I already made the motion to it, need to,
Second.
So, yeah,
Can you repeat what the motion was?
yeah, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented with removing letter H.
I still want H taken off.
A to
I
G.
had a question.
yeah, hang on one
Sorry.
second. We'll slow it down.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Kathy.
Thank you.
You said you have a question?
Yes. In the financial reports, I saw the trust fund report, and I didn't remember seeing that before. And I don't know,
Where are you?
under B, the financial reports.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it's worth talking about right now, if that's something it's okay for me to just talk to Adele privately about, as to how to read that, or do we want?
Oh, gotcha. You're just like deciphering the trust
Right,
account specifically. Yeah.
Or if that's anything that anybody else is interested in knowing
Adele, what do you think? Is that
how to read
something
it,
that's
or?
easier answered, like,
That's an individual question.
yeah? Might be more.
But
of
if
an
it's on the
individual.
agenda for, are you saying before you want to vote on B?
Just
if they'll allow-
questioning, I'm okay with it because I trust Adele. I just not sure exactly what I'm looking at. And I didn't know if anybody else had a question about it. If they did, we could look at it now. If nobody else does, I'm fine to ask Adele about it afterwards and approve it ahead of time.
Sure. Yeah, if nobody else have any questions about that, Adele, make it a point maybe just to, I don't see any reason why in a future time to just go over that one briefly with the board, just to make sure we're all on the same page with it.
5 to 10 minutes, that's all I need.
Perfect, yeah, let's just add that to something, a future presentation when you have this, if that's,
Thank you.
if that satisfies Kathy. Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Any other questions on any of the other items before we,
I do have a request that H be removed, so I'd appreciate if the motion specified that.
yeah,
Right.
sure.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was.
So I'll take a motion to approve items A through L, not including item H.
Yeah,
Just say it again officially.
I move that we accept the consent agenda with removing letter H.
Second.
Okay, can we get a roll call on that?
Oh, wait.
Ms. Trowbridge,
Aye.
Mrs. Groff,
Aye.
Mr. Benigno,
Aye.
Dr. Martin, Mr. Eby, Mrs. Kapka, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gensel.
Aye.
And then motion to approve letter H separately, right? I move that we accept letter H as presented.
Okay, roll call vote again for that too, please.
Mrs. Groff,
No.
Mr. Benigno,
Aye.
Dr. Martin, Mr. Eby, Mrs. Kapka, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gensel,
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge.
Aye.
That was a 7-1 vote.
Advantage of knowing everybody. One citizen can vote no and not vote it.
So we will add that to a future agenda then to talk about what to do about that specifically.
That's fine.
As an add-on to policy might be the best way to look at that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, okay.
What number session is that under? Do you know offhand? Don't you have them all memorized?
It's a 100.
Let's see, it's a
That's
It's a
one.
100. I don't, yeah, I
Well, then we
don't have the
can come
number
back to it.
memorized.
You
Okay.
can come back.
All right, so.
I'll study harder for February's meeting. I'll answer that one correctly.
I thought we'd quiz you on, knowing them all.
I know it's a 100 series, 121 I'm being told.
All right, so then under action discussion, we have the admin review of the 700 policies.
Yeah, so this is a first reading, so this is just as part of our normal policy review cycle. The 700s were up this time. The policy committee did meet. PSBA only had a recommendation for a revision to one of the policies in the 700 series this time. It was 707, as you can see, which is use of school facilities. So we will have this on a future action discussion agenda to discuss in more depth. We can certainly answer any questions now, but this is just the first reading. Second reading will be on in the future. We will put on for other 700 policies that they were reviewed, because the policy committee did review them as part of this process, but 707 is the only one that that we're recommending an update to.
Yeah. I had some things to bring up on 707. Under guidelines, it talks about turning in the application to the district business office. I think it should be more specific who gets that. And I couldn't find out when the fees are due, if that's due with the application or exactly when.
No, they're not.
Right, that was one thing in PSBA's recommendation. There was language about submitting fees with the application, and that's not our process here, so we
It doesn't
changed.
say that, though. At least, I don't think it did, unless
No,
I
we
missed
we
it.
changed that specifically.
What's the current process?
That would be under guidelines.
Yeah, when the fees are,
Right, they're billed once they go through the approval process.
gotcha. So they're approved and then billed.
Correct.
Okay,
They're approved, or they're billed after the event has occurred.
okay.
And my last question was, is the fee schedule completely separate from this?
Yes, it's separate. Yeah.
I think it should be referenced here, though, that there is a fee schedule or where to find it.
So at the bottom, if you see, there's, yeah, it is, fee schedule's referenced, but it doesn't specifically say where to access that. It is on our district website, and it's provided by our business office when we receive a request.
Something, so they know where to find it or who to ask for it. Sometimes when you read these, we know what they mean and don't realize we didn't say what we meant.
Well, and to address your first comment, Idette, about the district business office, is there a more specific reference in response to the first thing she mentioned about 10 days advance to the proposed
Send the
date?
guidelines.
Yeah, under the application process.
Yeah.
Is there a more specific offering, or do you feel that is?
Shouldn't there be somebody that it specifies would get that?
Everything's submitted electronically now, so it's hard to specify a person. That was what we discussed in our,
Okay.
when we were reviewing it, is and Adele, you can expand on this. I mean, it does, it's all on our website, and it's all like, everything's submitted electronically. So to a person in the community reading this policy, they're not going to see a person's name or a position that it gets applied to. They're just going to know that it gets applied. So maybe some language, maybe we can work on language that explains that a little bit
Yeah, we can do
more
that.
detailed about.
As part of the electronic application process, the person who's applying has to sign off that they have read the rules, that they have, that they're submitting a certificate of insurance. And also there's another link that they have to click on and look to that shows all the different fee schedules. So that's,
Oh,
so when
it
they're
is-
going
it is
to
there.
apply, it's all
Okay.
right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, this is just supporting what they see on the website. But
Well,
that
who,
might be more
there are what, 3 people that can approve or deny it? Am I right?
Yeah, it goes, a facilities request goes through multiple layers, I guess, is I don't know how else to put it. So for example, if somebody's requesting to use the high school, that the system first gives access for the building principal of that building to see it, and they're just basically checking to see, is the space being requested available that day, or is there something else already planned there? Is it going to interfere with instruction and so on? They're not really looking at do they meet all the other requirements? And if it meets kind of that level, it would go on to our business office to be reviewed, see if it meets our requirement. Did they submit, proof of liability insurance and all that stuff? So it's a multi-tiered process.
I'm trying to remember if it specifically says it can be accepted by the principal. I seem to
Right.
remember that.
So on what's being proposed is that the 3 positions that can deny a request would be the building principal. And like I said, that would just be for even before it comes to us, him or her knows that request they can't be accommodated for whatever reason. The building's not available, the space isn't available at that date or time. Then
If you turn it into the building principal, do they then turn it over to the business office in that 10-day, before that 10 days is up? I'm just wondering what the process is for all the right people to get it in time.
It's set up for routing, so if somebody wants to use a high school real gym, it's going to go to the athletic office. They're going to see if there's availability. If the gym's available, then it would go to the custodian so that they put it on their calendar to know that they're going to have a group, and then it goes to the principal, then it comes over to the business office, and then we assign the rates.
Okay, somewhere in those instructions, does it tell them how much advance of the date they want they need to get their paperwork in?
We changed the date to say at least 10 days.
Well, that's when it gets to the business office. But if they turn it into the principal or the athletic director, or, you know what I'm saying? If they're not turning it directly into the business office, how much time do they have to give you to make sure it's been cleared and all the right people have seen it?
I mean, a lot depends. The business office should have at least 10 days so that we can process, get the approval letter set up and ready for signature and send back to the applicant. Prior to that, at the building level, I've seen some of these rental requests now that it's all electronic. I've seen them go through very quickly. So they don't necessarily need a lot of time, but I don't like to make a blanket statement like that.
I'm thinking in terms of someone filling out an application, and they see here that it's got to be at the business office 10 days early, and they're turning it into their building principal or whoever.
I mean, we can make some verbiage change on the website where they access
Yeah,
the electronic submission.
yeah,
That we can have something added there.
yeah.
That shouldn't be a
Some way
problem.
that they know that they can't just turn it in for the first time in that
Right.
10-day period.
I-
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I think I think what might help with that is under guidelines, under the application process. Right now, it says that the application form will be turned in at least 10 days in advance of the proposed date to the district business office. I think maybe that term district business office might be the point of confusion. That maybe it's just must be submitted to the district within 10 days. The person submitting it doesn't know who it's going to. They don't know where it's being routed.
Yeah.
It's all electronic. They're not physically coming in with a, so I think just if they know, what we're saying is from whenever they submit the online application, within 10 days, we should be able to have we should be able to turn around and determine whether or not it's approved or not. It should go through all its routing and everything. Am I correct, Fidel, or am I off base with that? So,
I mean, that makes sense from a consistency standpoint.
so maybe
of
it's,
language.
if we take out I think what you're saying is you don't know, when it gets to the business office, but it might take 3 or 4 days at the principal. So I think that's where the confusion is. If we just clean that up, in my opinion, just say it's going to be 10 days notice, that's what gives us ample time for it to go through all the internal routing it needs to on our end.
Yeah. And I would say the only other piece of this, just from a clarity standpoint, is the piece where it does say under delegation of responsibility, an application for use of school facilities may be disapproved, and it mentions that should actually be listed under the application process after application evaluation, because that denial is part of the evaluation. That should probably be moved down there from a clarity standpoint. That would be another suggestion for me. So a little bit of cleanup in time for second reading. First reading.
Yeah, this is just on for initial,
You said first reading
Yeah.
earlier, and that's all I heard. So,
Should it be 10 business days instead of 10 days?
probably. I think that would give us a little more leeway.
Yeah.
all right, so 10 business days, clean up the area about the district business office, maybe move that disapproval process under the application process, and then we'll do first reading.
Right, so first reading draft will reflect some of those changes, and we can wordsmith there if we need to. But we still have two more meetings before final approval, so.
That'd be great.
Which is, I always read these things as if I know nothing, and I'm new in the district, and I'm a parent. And what's it look like to them?
Yeah,
Even though we know what we mean.
right. And sometimes you can't just go to the website and figure it out. All right, any other comments for that piece? All right, we have the information agenda, finance and operations report. Any questions regarding that? And then the curriculum instruction report is also presented there for you. Any questions or concerns about that? Anything new from a federal fund standpoint?
Nothing new at this point.
Okay. And then under board reports, we have the IU13 report.
Yeah, I have my 3 reports. For the IU report, there are a couple changes. And this was on the board report, the IU, the PSBA report before, but I just wanted to bring to your attention. Under programs, there's one called Franklin. If you call PSBA for information, you're not going to get to speak to a person. You're going to get to speak to Franklin, who's a robot of AI. Now, I do not know if that allows for follow-up questions. I don't know how well it's going to work, but just for those of you that sometimes call, you'd be prepared. The other thing is under new email, new programs. They sent this information out to me 3 different times, and every time it was a different schedule. So this is the best I can figure out. On Mondays, you will get something called the board brief. It's your educational news digest that you're used to. On Tuesday, you will get the countdown sent to you. On Wednesday, you will get the PSBA Works for You, which is professional development and resources, and COSB. That's Coalition of State School Board Associations. That's where our administrators went after they withdrew from NSBA. And there'll also be the COSB's reports. And on Friday, you'll get Under the Dome when the General Assembly is in session for a legislative, for legislative information. The other thing under the state, if you remember last month, I mentioned that the judicial ruling for changing the agenda had become 4 instead of 3, and I knew that the legislators weren't going to like it. They've already written that legislation to go back to the way they meant that legislation to read. Either way, as before, my recommendation is we always stick with those original ones anyhow. They seem to be more in line with the intention of the Sunshine Act. And I think that's it. We have, they still haven't formally released the names of any of the officers. I don't know if that bothers anyone or not. The other reports, the Academy has not met yet after its last graduation, so we'll be starting that in February. What else am I missing?
I think that's it.
Is that-
PSBA,
is
IU 13,
that
and
three?
Lancaster Academy.
I
Yep.
did want to add one, even though I no longer go to the Education Foundation, I don't think you've had a meeting yet, have you?
We just had the one where it was Gerald's last one, Dr. Huskin's last.
I'm sorry.
It was Dr. Huskin's last official meeting.
Okay, well, I just wanted to catch you up that they did appoint a new executive director. That's Audrey McLean. I don't know if any of you know her. I've known her since she was 3 or since she was 5. She once was she went to CV, as did her younger brother, Gene. She once taught at CV until they moved out of state. And her family is the Clark family. They're very invested in CV. So she's, I think, an excellent choice to run an organization and someone very loyal to the district.
Yeah.
And active in it ever since she was a little girl.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that was the perspective I got to. It's sad to see Dr. Huskin kind of like take a step back because he's just been so ingrained here for so long. I think they had already had that little reception for him, kind of like that send off. I don't know if that means he's actually retiring or if he's just going to find another club to belong to, but that's his prerogative. But I know everybody seems pretty excited for her to take over. She's definitely got what it takes.
She's enthusiastic, she's bright, she's all CV.
Yeah, and that board seems very unanimous that she's the right choice. So I'm excited for new things to come from the Education Foundation for sure.
You could tell sitting around the board table in the past, just by looking at her, she was about to raise her hand.
Lancaster CTC, anything new there, Phil?
I was at my first CTC meeting back in December, and the big thing there, I believe, was Dr. Scott Long was approved to be the new executive director there. So he's coming from Solanco High School, where he was a principal, and joining the CTC starting next week. So staff, everybody's excited to have him as they've been kind of filling in that role for quite some time. So, yeah, looking forward to digging in there and learning more about the great things that CTC is doing.
Awesome. Construction meeting, we actually have one in February. There hasn't been one yet.
And that's the one, I'm gonna start coming to this.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. But the report is attached for Leola. If you haven't looked at it, my favorite picture is the gym that has about 25 widescreen TVs in it. I don't know why, it looks like a super sale or something to me. Don't treat it that way. You can't go get a free TV, but anyway, it's really nice to see that building continue to come together. They're really finishing well, so look forward to that being finished. Any other reports? Did you want to report, Julie, on your insurance conference? I'm sure that was exciting. No, I didn't think so. All right, so now we have the second part of the meeting for the second addressing the board by the public. So, sir, if you want to come back up for your time, come right ahead. I think those mics are still on. Maybe.
It's quiet in
It's
here.
on the top. You should be fine. I think we're good. Yeah. Yep, awesome. Perfect.
Okay.
Do you mind just stating your name for the board, please?
Yes, my name is Andrew Brooks, district resident and district parent in West Earl Township. The reason for my address tonight is I just wanted to respectfully request the board take action. Last week, President Trump signed the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act of 2025. What this does is remove any and all restrictions on serving whole and 2% milk in schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program. This was bipartisan legislation enacted to basically address something that should never have happened in the first place. Back in 2011, 2012, whole milk was effectively banned from schools due to regulatory and bureaucratic reasons. This had nothing, well, it was really a misguided because whole milk, I can tell you from personal experience, has protein, calcium, vitamin D, potassium. It's healthy. And my kids love it. I have 2 children in the district, and I'd love to see them have it at lunch. So I just respectfully ask that the board take appropriate steps administratively, the Director of Food Services, whoever, give that person any and all power to request that this be added to the menus. This will help dairy farmers, it'll help the kids, it'll help them nutritionally, and right now there are no restrictions to do so. That's all.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We'll definitely have.
Thank you.
Administration will reach back out to you.
I know typically we don't comment on public comment, but I do have information I could add to that
Sure.
if the board would like. So, gentleman's correct. I think it's January 14th it was signed into law. The Healthy Kids, or what's it called, the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act of 2025. We did reach out to our Director of Food Services about this. It was what that law states is that it doesn't mandate schools sell it, but it allows us to. Certainly, I think it would make a lot of our students happy to be able to have 2% in whole milk back in the schools. So we are certainly looking into it. With anything, when something's signed into legislation, we're sort of waiting on guidance from our state Department of Education and for updated some of the guidance we were issued. There was a white paper that was issued by the federal government on it when it came out, and what we were told is there's more guidance and rulemaking forthcoming. So we're kind of just waiting on some clarity before we implement it, but it is our intent to certainly look into bringing whole milk and 2% milk back into the schools. It's just anytime something's signed into law, there's a whole process of rulemaking and guidance issuance and things like that we sort of wait for until we take action. But
Can I ask if the American Pediatric Association has weighed in on this?
I don't know if they've weighed in specifically on the milk issue. I know on some of the new dietary guidelines that were recently issued, like the new food pyramid and things like that. They've issued some guidance that's sort of separate from this, from my understanding. But I also understand the National School Lunch Program is supposed to be issuing guidance, not just to address the Healthy Milk Act, but all of the new dietary guidelines fairly soon. And like I said, once that then goes through the State Department of Education, and then there'll be a whole issuance of guidance. So I haven't seen anything from APA on specifically the new milk law.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, board matters. Any board comments, initiatives tonight?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to, for our first meeting in February, to have action discussion on a proposal of a new policy called 123.3. That it would be run concurrent with our current sports policy of 123. And in that, I would like us to discuss some wording that would be added to create a new policy 123, so our sports will be determined by sex-based distinctions and not by identity. And I'd like to have that on the agenda for the first meeting in February, please.
So for the February 9th meeting?
Yes, sir.
Adding that to the discussion.
I'd like next month to have the 000 policies that were to be voted on in one unit with no changes, rather than just sliding past it. I think I mentioned that before.
Okay.
Shoot.
I'm not sure what it would involve, but any of those 100s that we made no changes on, I think should also be put on as a block.
Okay, gotcha.
And the motion would be to approve without changes.
Right, okay. Yeah, I do remember you mentioning that before. Just finish making my note here. Okay. We'll look to add those to February. Any other board comments, initiatives? Next dates for February, well, we also have Our board retreat is next Monday, weather willing. We'll be watching that to see if we end up with a dusting or 27 inches, who knows?
If we get that snow, can we have it at your house?
Yeah, sure. You're bringing hot cocoa. But other than that, we have our two regular meetings, February 9th and February 17th. We actually have no executive content tonight to go over. So we will just take, I'll take a motion to just adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.